we're going to get started. We'll allow everyone else to come in as they decide to join us. On behalf of the North American Chilean Chamber of Commerce and the Gabriela Mistral Foundation, I want to thank you for joining us this afternoon to this event, which is the presentation of Patricia Cerda's new book, Bajo la Cruz del Sur, under the Southern Cross, on the occasion of the 500 years of the discovery of the Strait of Magellan and Chile. The book has been very well received, and this is a first presentation of the book in the United States. So we're very proud. You'll all have a chance to meet Patricia and hear her wonderful story. Now, we're going to, before we get started with anything, we have a very special message from Mrs. Consuelo Valdes. It will be a video, pre-recorded video. Mrs. Consuelo Valdes is a Minister of Culture, the Arts and Patrimony of Chile, is also the Vice President of the Presidential Council of the 500 Years of the Discovery of the Strait of Magellan. So before we get started, we're going to share that with you. I will warn you, the video is in Spanish, but the message is wonderful, and I hope you enjoy it.
Quiero saludar a todas y todos quienes han hecho parte de esta ceremonia para celebrar la nueva novela de Patricia Cerda. Es una propuesta que ve la luz en un momento muy pertinente, cuando nos encontramos a puertas de la conmemoración de los 500 años del viaje de Magallanes, un hito que, como lo sabemos, cambió la concepción geográfica y científica del mundo. Y también es atingente por el periodo que hoy nos toca vivir, 5 siglos más tarde de esa primera circunnavegación documentada, en medio de un cambio cultural gatillado por tantos desafíos contemporáneos. Volver a ese viaje original lleno de miedo e incertidumbre, pero también de muchos anhelos y desafíos a través de esta nueva novela histórica que nos regala Patricia, gatilla nuestra reflexión, uniendo épocas y formas de ver y de entender el mundo. Muchas gracias por invitarnos a revisitar este hecho de la historia.
Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed the wonderful message from the minister. Now I will have the pleasure of introducing to you Gloria Garafulich-Grabois, who will be the moderator for today's event. She's actually a return moderator. She's helped us before. And more than moderating, Gloria curates the presentation in a wonderful way. It will be a conversation between her and Patricia. And for those of you who don't know Gloria, and you should, she is a native of Chile, a citizen of the United States and Croatia. In 2018, she was awarded the grade of Dame of the Order of Merit, Gabriela Mistral. She has a lifelong commitment, and I can attest to that, to international relations, women's and children's issues, literature, the arts, classical and world music and writing, particularly in relation to Gabriela Mistral, and obviously to the support of wonderful authors like Patricia. She currently holds a position as director of the Chesterton Institute for Faith and Culture, and where she also is a managing director of their acclaimed academic journals, the Chesterton Review and the Lonergan Review. She is the president of the Gabriela Mistral Foundation, and that's how we're collaborating. And she has done many, many things for them. I will mention just a couple. She wrote and produced and directed the documentary Gabriela Mistral, Her Life, Her Legacy. And this was launched at a special event in the New York Times in October of 2009. She also was the editor of the Foundation's special bilingual publication, From Chile to the World, 70 Years of Gabriela Mistral. She has also been involved in the creation of the Mamayuca Chilean Film Festival, which has run twice already, first last year, this year again. which is it aims to promote and highlight the important cinematography production of Chile in New York. So we are in great company with Gloria and Patricia, and I will now give the floor to Gloria. Gloria, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Manuelita, and thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you for those kind but undeserved words. My first words are really of thanks to and congratulations to Manuelita and to the Board of Directors and the members of the North American Chilean Chamber of Commerce for their hard and important work to promote and visualize business and business opportunities, as well as instances of collaboration between our country of birth, Chile, and our adopted land, the United States. And I would like to welcome you to this event where we will have an opportunity to meet Patricia Cerda, a Chilean author who, through her historical novels, transports us to a Chile and a world of long ago. By official decree issued by the Presidency of Chile in January 2019, includes the following excerpt. 500 years ago, Ferdinand Magellan's arrival to the Strait of Magellan and its great importance as the first circumnavigation of the Earth, which joined the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. It also marked the opening of the cultural and commercial exchange in the world. It is therefore the most appropriate place to present Patricia's book with the North American Chilean Chamber of Commerce in its first presentation in the United States. It is most appropriate to do it and to present under the Southern Cross, published by Planeta in September, a book that has already become a bestseller. It has sold over the first edition, and for the first time, under the Southern Cross will be presented under the Northern Lights, which sometimes can be seen. We are also most grateful and honored to have received a special greeting from the Minister of Culture, the Arts, and the Patrimony of Chile, Ms. Consuelo Valdes, who, as Manuelita mentioned, she is also the Vice President of the Council in support of today's event and Patricia's book. And thank you for inviting me today. It is then with great pleasure that I will now introduce to you a dear friend, a fellow Chilean, and today's special who joins us from Berlin, Patricia Cerda. Patricia was born in Chile, and since 1986, she has lived in Berlin. In 1996, she received a PhD in history from the Free University of Berlin. Before becoming a writer, she was professor of intercultural communication at the Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich. She has authored a number of articles and essays on history, literature, and philosophy, which have been published in various journals. Her first publication in 2013 was a collection of stories titled Entre Mundos, or In Between Worlds. One of the stories was translated into German and published in the Anthology of Emerging Chilean Literature. Two of her great works were published in 2016. Both are historical novels. Mestiza was published in July of that year and in October. In 2018, she published Violeta and Nicanor, an excellent novel about the deep bond of two siblings who have made a lasting mark in Chilean and Latin American culture. Her 2019 historical novel, Luz in Berlin, will transport you to her second homeland at the end of the Cold War as she relates her personal experience. Today, we have the great pleasure of introducing you to Patricia Cerda while she presents her latest publication, a wonderful and most engaging historical novel published on the 500th anniversary of the discovery of the Strait of Magellan, a journey and the first circumnavigation of the world. On behalf of the North American Chilean Chamber of Commerce, its board, and the members, it is with great pleasure that I welcome you today to today's event, and I thank you for accepting our invitation to have this conversation to present to you Bajo la Cruz del Sur, and also to meet Patricia, who will tell us a little bit about her background and her journey. I have no doubt that everyone is looking forward to the program, so let's get started. But before that, I would just like to share a little excerpt that was published in El Mercurio just a few weeks ago by a very well-known literary critic, Camilo Marx. What does he say about Patricia? He says, to put it simply, she's a gifted writer, ambitious, with multiple interests and talents, that writes exceedingly well and with precision. She ventures in areas that few or no Chilean writers dare to delve in. In other words, we're now in front of a first-class writer. In the world of today, the past seems to be the pre-COVID era. This is the most opportune time and important time to read Bajo la Cruz del Sur and learn about the men that 500 years ago circumnavigated the world and changed humanity and the world perspective. So Patricia, thank you so much for being with us today. And we welcome you from Berlin to New York. I would like to start with a few questions. It's the conversation, and then you can tell us a little bit about your background, about your work. So why don't we get started? If referring to a note on your very interesting biography, it mentions that you left Chile for Germany to pursue a doctorate in history, and now you returned to Chile as a writer of historical. When does a historian start to become a writer?
I'd like to say hello to all people that are showing us, and thank you. Also, thank you, Gloria, thank you, Manuelita, on the Shamba, for this invitation. I am very lucky to be here and speak with you about my last novel, Under the Southern Cross. And to your question, I started to write literature when I turned 50 years old. And I realized that I have lived the first part of my life in Chile and the second part in Germany. And I wanted to express this experience in some way. So I began to write short stories. And I write very, very fast. I had 7 stories in 3 months also. And I published these stories in an independent publishing house in Chile and was very happy about the reception. So I thought that what I really wanted to write was a novel about the roots of the Chilean and Latin American cultures, and from the perspective of a woman, because I thought this perspective is missed. Also, so that is the beginning of Mestiza. I wrote Mestiza. It was my first novel, and I have wrote already 5 novels at a time. So I am very working well. I work a lot of literature is my life at the moment.
You have started to write and to share these wonderful novels with us. Could you tell us a little bit about Mestiza and Rugendas, your first and second novels? Both are historical novels, and throughout the story, you relate part of the story of Chile, especially Mestiza, the novel which you started, and that also you started to take your important place in Chilean literature. Could you share with us a little bit about that, the 2 books, the 2 publications?
Yes, Mestiza, in this novel, a native woman from the Araucanía region of in the south of Chile, who is half Mapuche and half Spanish, look back at her life and tells us the story while she lived in Seville, Spain. And this time she is 70 years old and has lived a big part of the 17th century. She lived through everything that happened in her land, such as the war of Arauco, the isolation of Chile in the colonial time, an earthquake, the corruption of Spanish authorities, and many more. She tells her story, and so she tells the story of her country, of her culture, of her land. And in Rugendas, I follow the footsteps of a romantic German painter and South American traveler called Johann Moritz Rugendas, who was a good friend of Alexander von Humboldt. He visited Chile because he wanted to know the Mapuche, but he remained there for 8 years because he fell in love with a very intelligent woman named Carmen Arriagada. She loved him as well, but she was married. She was like a Madame Bovary, but she was a real person who lived in a little Chilean town named Talca. In the library of the Ibero-American Institute in Berlin, they conserve more than 200 letters that she wrote to Rugendas. Rugendas brought these letters to this hometown, Regensburg, and they were found after the Second War at the attic of a house and brought to this institute where I found it. My novel, Rugendas, based in these letters, and reveal Carmen Arriagada as the first Chilean writer. So it is a love story who take place in the beginning of the Republican life of Chile.
Oh, very interesting. And now let's talk for a little bit about your next other novel called, because you live in Germany, in Berlin to be exact, and you publish your novels in Chile. How is this experience of living and writing in two cultures, perhaps taking the name of your first publication, perhaps I should say, Entre Culturas?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Entre Culturas. It's very interesting for me to live between two cultures. And of course, I intend to absorb the very best of each from these cultures. And this experience flows in my writings. That's in Luz in Berlin that I published last year. Is set in Berlin at the time of the fall of the wall. And I wanted to relate in this novel part of my experiences living in Germany and what it means to move between two worlds, something that more and more people do today.
You're right. That is, we're all living with in between worlds, in between cultures. And how do you choose the topics or the themes of your novels? Is there, do they come to you, or do you come to them?
They come to me. I don't choose my subjects. They come to me. The idea of writing Mestiza, the novel about the beginning of the Chilean and Latin American country with the perspective of a woman, came when I was a history student in Chile 30 years ago. And I felt that this perspective was missing. But it took me a long time to begin to write it. But this allowed the story to mature in my mind. But once I began to write Mestiza, it took only about 8 months to complete the story.
Wow.
How you say Mestiza was published 2016, you had already said it. Yes.
Right. Yeah. I said you did mention before you were a fast writer. 8 months was such a wonderful novel. Certainly, it's not only accomplishment in time, but also in the content, which is wonderful. How important has your training as a historian been for your writing career?
Very important. I can say. What I really want with my literature is to enrich the cultural memory of Chile and Latin America with new perspective and new voices. And for that helps my historical background, my background as a historian helped me doing that. Instead of placing my stories and character in the present, I place them in the past. And on the way, I discover new relations between this past and the present, but I never lose sight of the present. For me, is the present always very important. Bajo la Cruz del Sur is about the beginning of the European expansion on the planet. The novel tried to be a reflection about this expansion 500 years later, when the same European society today is questioning their Eurocentrism because they find it dangerous. Recently, I can tell you, in the city center of Berlin, the city where I live, I am in Berlin now, was inaugurated a museum in the Humboldt Forum, who is dedicated only to non-European cultures. The integration of the perspective of other cultures will be the largest challenge of the West in this century, I think, not because they would like exotic, but because of the question of the survival of the human species. So this is the motivation for me, also the motivation for me to write under the Southern Cross.
The idea or the design under the Southern Cross start. What to think? I would like to write about this topic, which is of such interest, of such importance to the world, and of course to Chile.
Yeah, the idea arose in April last year when I was invited by the Goethe Institute and the Universidad de Magallanes in Punta Arenas to an art residence on the occasion of the 500 years of the discovery of the Strait of Magellan. The residence was called Magellan 2020. During this residence, while crossing over the Strait of Magellan and over the Beagle Channel, I began to imagine the journey of Magellan and began to imagine this novel. There's something magical in the southern lands and seas. Don't forget, they have been an inspiration for many important writers, such as Herman Melville, Edgar Allan Poe, Jules Verne, and the great Chilean writer Francisco Coloane, whose autobiography I read during my time in Punta Arenas.
Very interesting. That was a fortuitous trip. Very opportunity. In the novel Under the Southern Cross, there are too many characters in the novel. They're both very interesting. One of them, of course, is Ferdinand Magellan, and the other one is Antonio Pigafetta. Can you talk to us a little bit about them?
Yes, Magellan and Pigafetta are the most important characters in the novel. Magellan dies in the Philippines, And then the story centers on the Italian chronicler Antonio Pigafetta. He was one of the few unconditional allies Magallanes had. I felt that the Pigafetta character had a lot of dramatical power. He came from Italy in the time of the Renaissance, so his mind was more open than the Spanish, the mind of his Spanish companions, because of his connection with the court of Charles I in Spain and his education. He spoke 5 languages. The king named him chronicler of the army of Magellan, and he took this role very seriously. What he didn't understand, he invented. This is the reason why Gabriel Garcia Marquez refers to him as the father of magical realism in his novel Speech. The version of his chronicle he brought to the Spanish king disappeared. There is some intrigue behind, which I discovered while doing my research for the novel. Fortunately, Pigafetta wrote other versions of his journal in French and Italian who have been preserved.
Oh, very good. Every moment you talk about it, so I have read the novel and it makes me want to read it again. How would you describe Ferdinand de Magellan?
He was an introvert seaman who had great Catholic faith and interior power. Today we will say he was a crazy man because this journey was really a crazy adventure, no matter how you look at it. He went to unknown territories, searching for a strait that links the 2 great oceans, only suspecting that this strait really exists. No European had ever sailed there before. He went to land that didn't even exist in a map. And this time, the European had only sailed to Rio de la Plata, and beyond that was terra incognita, they said. In Europe, circulated a lot of horror stories about this part of the world. So he was very crazy.
I can imagine why people would have thought that sailing away to unknown lands without knowing what they would find. How was the research process that you had for this novel?
I began the investigation in Punta Arenas in the library of the University of Magallanes. And then back in Berlin, I found a lot of information in the library of the Latin American Institute. This library is the most important library about Latin America in Europe. There I find a very important book from the Chilean historian José Toribio Medina named The Discovery of the Pacific Ocean. This book was very important for me. And I also read a lot of novels from European writers, all, of course, with a strong Eurocentric perspective. And I wanted to write something different. I tried to relate Magellan journey without assuming any cultural perspective. My interest was only the human being, independent of the culture the person comes from. And I tried to tell what happens in this journey just as I imagined, without hypocrisy or hiding anything, more along the lines of our century. I don't see you, Gloria.
Are you there? Okay. Yes, I wanted to make sure that you had finished the question because the connection was a little cut.
Okay, but I heard you very well. I heard you.
Okay, good. Because your connection was cut, so I wasn't sure. But we can move on to the next question, which is the perspective of the native people of the Americas, the Philippines. The Moluccas Islands is very present in the novel. This makes it very engaging and very fascinating. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? I mean, a lot of people may not know all the details and have that much information about that part of the story.
Yeah, as looking at this first circumnavigation from the perspective of the 21st century, the native people's perspective cannot be absent. And this is what I wanted also to write, to integrate in my novel. The native people from Brazil, from the Patagonia, from the Philippines, and from Indonesia, the Molucca Island. There are two implicit questions in the novel. The first is, up to what level were the Europeans prepared to understand the native peoples they met? This is the first. And the second one is 500 years later, what does this first circumnavigation of the world tell us about us today?
And were you able to have or to find the answer to these questions, these two important questions?
I think I could answer the first question.
Okay.
I think the Europeans, in their Eurocentrism, were not prepared to understand or accept other cosmovisions besides their own. They view native people as pagans whose souls needed to be solved. In the same time, they didn't know neither the dimensions of the planet nor the place planet Earth occupied in the solar system. They also didn't understand what it means really to be a human being. And for the second question, what does this first circumnavigation tell us about us today? I think each of the readers can find their own answer.
Okay, well, that's a wonderful answer and a great invitation for all of us to read the book for the first time or to read it again. Why do you think that 500 years later, Magellan's journey is still fascinating us?
Well, the metaphor of the journey is very important in the Western culture and literature. Think about the Odyssey and the journey of Jason and the Argonauts. The 18 sailors from the fleet of Magellan who returned to Seville on September 1522 were compared to the mythical Argonauts from Apollonius' story. But they were a real person who brought to Europe news about unknown land and islands and about the real dimension of the planet. For Chile, Magellan's journey is important because in Pigafetta's chronicle, he referred to and drew for the first time our territory. In Chile, many names of the geography of the southern cone are a permanent reminder of this journey, including the name Patagonia. We have here the Patagonia in the version, no? in the show.
Yes, great. Now, how, in your opinion, should this first circumnavigation of the world be commemorated now that we approach, which is the 500 years is on October 21st, just a few short days away?
I think each country should make their own reflections. I think that they are doing it. The Philippines people cannot look at this journey like Spain people or Chilean people. I think it should be a moment of deeply reflection on the European expansion on the planet, and each one from their own perspective. So my perspective cannot be the same of the Spanish or Portuguese. I write from a different place. I am a Latin American woman who assumes her mestiza roots. Let's not forget that above all, literature is an interpretation of the reality.
You're right. Yes. Well, I hope, first of all, I would like to thank you for all of this wonderful conversation, for giving us such insight about how, not only about this novel, but about the insights about your journey from Chilean as a historian to being a novelist, and being in this in between two cultures, between two worlds, where you bring the historical novels from the country of your, while you write them in your adopted country. I think it's fascinating from that point of view as well, and also because you share with us, and with your historical knowledge and point of view, you make us think about our history and where we come from, and what all of these stories, although they are novels and they are, as you say, literatures and the interpretation, but your interpretation of facts that are all part of us, either Europeans or Chile or whatever. So I think it's wonderful, and on behalf of everyone, I would like to thank you for writing, for writing and for bringing us these novels. Each one of them is a gift. I also would like to thank everyone who has joined us today. Certainly, we could continue this conversation for a much longer time. However, due to the time constraints that we all have in our daily lives, we may need to leave this for a future opportunity. However, if any of you who have so kindly joined us today would like to contact Patricia, either to talk to her about the novels or with any questions, I'll give you her email. He has kindly, give her email so you can send her the questions. Her email is patcerdap@gmail.com. We would like to thank you again for being our guest today from far away, but thanks to all the new technology, we are under one sky, talking about, about novels that bring us together, which is what the arts do in all of their disciplines. And in this case, not only you're bringing your literature, but you're bringing our history, and making us, inviting us to view history in a different way from your side. We hope to continue the conversation at some point soon. We wish you all the best and continued success. And for the ones of you who have not had the opportunity to read the novel yet, I invite you, I encourage you to read not only Under the Cross or Bajo la Cruz del Sur, but also Mestiza, Rogendas, Violeta. They're all wonderful, and there's a great way to read, and especially in these times that we're stuck at home, pick up a book and enjoy it. So I would like to thank everyone. Thank you,
Can I
Patricia.
say something? Can I say
Sure,
something?
of
I
course.
want to say hello to Birgit Heidfeld. She's also in Berlin. And Birgit works in the embassy from Chile and Germany. And she's a good friend. And all the pictures you see for me, the picture you have seen in this page, had made Birgit.
Oh, it's great.
She does a lot for the Latin American literature in Germany.
Oh,
So
well, that's
I say
wonderful.
hello to Birgit. I'm happy to see you here. I am surprised.
Gloria, can you
Yes,
hear me?
yes, we can.
Okay, Gloria, I cannot leave this meeting before thanking you for your kind invitation. And I congratulate you for the excellent moderator role that you played. And of course, for me, I am proud of having had the chance to listen to Patricia. As soon as I go to Santiago, we go running and get the book. And I certainly will look at your remarks on your human aspect, on all of what you have related in the book. So thank you very much. Nice being with you, and thanks for the invitation. Congratulations again, Patricia.
Thank you very
Well,
much, Juan Carlos.
I'd like to really also thank you, Juan Carlos, for your kind served, and thank you, Patricia, for being here and to make this gathering possible, and to Manuelita and the board of directors of the chamber for not only welcoming and seeing the value and the great importance of business, but also culture, which is the soft power of culture that can bring us together. And to all of you who have joined, Manuelita will also let you know the details, but this going to be on YouTube, so share it with your friends, and Manuelita will give you the details on that. And thank you again, and we hope we can meet again, not in the too far distant future, for another time of culture and getting together and getting to know our very rich and cultural offerings our country has. So thank you, Patricia. Lovely to see you. Have a good evening in Germany, where it's now 7 hours later than here. It's 3 o'clock here. There is almost 10 o'clock.
6 hours
6
later.
hours. Okay, so it's 9 o'clock. So Manuelita, back to you, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
I want to echo the words of Gloria. Patricia, congratulations on your book. And everyone, thank you for participating. Juan Carlos, your words were lovely, and we're very happy to have you in the audience. And this is the first of many. Patricia, I'm sure we'll see great things from you moving forward. And, you can count on the chamber on the Gabriela Mistral Foundation to support your efforts. So thank you all for participating. And yes, the video of this whole presentation will be available in the chamber's YouTube channel, which is NACCNY. So look for us there. We have a lot of other webinars coming your way, but this will be there, and we hope you get to see it. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Thank you, Patricia. Have a good evening, and we'll stay in touch.
We'll stay in touch. Good evening for all of us.
Thank you. You have a great day, everybody. Thank you.